Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Pick up your phone. All right, I got it. You have no thumbs. I get it. Hello, and welcome to the GSMC Television Podcast. We are part of the mighty GSMC Podcast Network, and I'm your questionably immune host, Howard Fletcher. I'm joined here again with my trusted engineer, Jack the Black Pug, and we are very, very, very happy and excited that you can be here with us once again. Happy Cinco de Mayo. That's when this episode should drop. Cinco de Mayo. It officially commemorates the anniversary of an early victory of Mexican forces over French forces in the Battle of Puebla on May the 5th, 1862. So don't tell anyone this is Mexican Independence Day, because it is not. And I just think that's something that Americans like to say. And listen, I'm not a Mexican, but I like history. And at least if you're going to tell people stuff, tell them the right thing. If you're a return listener, welcome back. You are truly the reason I'm here talking into this mic. If this is your first time here, I'm glad you're here. Stick around. I think you'll hear something that you like and you'll come back. At least that's my hope. We have a really big show for you today, so let's get to it. We're going to talk about comedians helping to feed America, premiere dates for new shows and series that are going to start in May, a review of a new Netflix movie with my man Jeffrey Wright. He's just coming off of Westworld. He didn't have much to do this season. That was kind of a bummer. Really like his character Bernard. And as always, I'm going to hit you with some breaking news, and I will do my final recap of Westworld Season 3. Sunday was the season finale, and I can't wait to get to that. But as in many recent shows, I want to tell you, much of what we have to discuss is going to be flavored with the effects of COVID-19 and production shutdowns and slowdowns have had on our lives and in the industry. So worry not. This is not going to be a downer of a podcast. Au contraire, we like to have fun around here. So listen, strap in, get your favorite refreshment, get your beverage or your edibles or whatever you fool around with, and let's get started with some breaking news. Daily host Trevor Noah, he's keeping safe social distance from his crew right now, but he's still trying to do right by them. Now, this is a story that, happened a couple weeks ago, actually. But Trevor Noah is personally paying the salaries of 25 furloughed members of The Daily Show.
Hell yeah!
And this is amid the whole industry-wide production shutdown that has been prompted by the coronavirus and social distancing. Noah has informed crew members that he will continue to pay their salaries until production begins to ramp back up in the television industry. And right now, I don't know when that's going to be. Hopefully in June, who knows? Following suit, James Corden has also committed to paying the salaries of about 60 furloughed staffers on The Late Late Show.
Hell yeah!
After their paychecks from CBS came to an end this past week. Corden has been hosting and producing The Late Late Show from his garage in Los Angeles since April 14th. That show is on too late for me, so I don't watch it, but it gets great ratings, and James Corden is a good host. CBS covered 8 weeks of salary for production staffers that were sidelined by the sudden shutdown of The Late Late Show on March 15th, as the coronavirus spurred social distancing mandates that were put on by Gavin Newsom. California was actually one of the first states to really enforce it, and as a result, the television industry is pretty much shut down. Last week, Corden informed some staffers that they would be furloughed as of May 4th, and that he would cover the salaries going forward out of his own pocket. Now, the total cost to Corden is unclear, but it's likely to be in the mid 5 figures a week. Now, I know they break him off pretty, a pretty good chunk of change for hosting that show. In fact, it boggles my mind what some of these, what television entertainers, the frontliners make. They make some really good dough. But it's good to see that somebody like Corden, James Corden, appreciates his workers, and he's going to go ahead and use some of that change to help them pay their bills. Now, on the positive side, as California moves slowly to reopen the economy and other aspects of their public life, shows that are filmed on a soundstage, like The Late Late Show, are actually probably going to be one of the first types of shows that's going to come back, and because their environment is quite controlled. They're going to have a few adjustments. The Late Late Show originates from CBS Television City in what's called the Fairfax District. They probably won't have, at first they tried to do it without an audience. And then they just started going from their homes because that didn't work for the crew. When they come back, they probably will not have an audience. At least that's my thought. I'm not getting that from the press release. That's just my thought, but we'll see what they do. Corden and his producing team have made a point of keeping Late Late Show staffers engaged on work from home projects related to the show during the lockdown. That's very smart. If you remember, there was a story that we reported on this show a few weeks back about Ellen's crew that not only were not being communicated with very well, but they had nothing to do. So hopefully that's been ironed out. I've been looking for some sort of epilogue to that story, and I have yet to get one. If I find out what happened, I'll let you know. Corden and executive producer Ben Winston have assembled a daily speakers series via Zoom for Late Late Show staffers, as well as employees of Fulton 73, the production company that Corden and Winston run out of offices in LA and London. I'm sure that's pretty nice to tell people. Where do you run your company out of? LA and London. Nice. I thought that was a good story, and that's why I wanted to start off the day at least with there are good stories that are coming out of this coronavirus thing. Even though these folks are out of work, it's good to know that people are doing the right thing out there. And in other breaking news, which I think is important, even though it's not big news, but it's going to be important to people who follow television, and it has to do with the Television Critics Association. Now, as the world faces a global pandemic, another major television event, of course, has been canceled, and that's the Television Critics Association Summer Press Tour. Now, also, they're known as the TCA. And while the TCA board members are working with networks to explore virtual alternatives to having that sit-down meeting, which almost everyone's been on a Zoom meeting right now, even if it's just families. Man, had I known, I would have invested in Zoom. Well, had anyone known, but, who knows? Maybe those Congress people who dumped all that stock, maybe they bought Zoom stock. I don't know. They should have given us a heads up, don't you think? They want to have, usually these things are held in like ballroom settings, like press panels, but they can't do that now because of social distancing. They were going to try to wait out till July and August to do this, but they've decided not to do it. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, the TCA press tours are used for networks to promote their new lineups. And with production halted indefinitely, there are far fewer shows for them to present at that event. Why is that important? Television and entertainment production companies are hesitant to put a show out there without considerable press coverage. That's why, a lot of these articles I get out of the trades, what they call the trades, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, the types of things people follow. And that information pours out to people like myself who tell the general public about shows that are coming up. And that's how they create buzz. They're not going to put out a show that they've invested considerable money in without the buzz being created to prep, to grease the skids, so to speak. So since they have no new shows that they can show the press corps to grease the skids, we might not be getting a whole lot of new television, folks, other than the stuff that's already been filmed or taped or what have you. And that's just the fact. It's just not going to happen. To give you an example, the most recent press tour promoted such winter and spring series as Homecoming, which is an Amazon Prime series, Season 2 of Homecoming, a show that was reviewed on this show, Hulu FX's Devs, and Mrs. America, which also is an FX Hulu show. It's a show with the beautiful Cate Blanchett, which I plan on watching. I haven't seen it yet. And also, and Apple TV was allowed to promote all of their new shows that was coming up on the new Apple TV, like Servant and stuff like that. So I just thought I wanted to mention that because it's another signal that we're not going to get a whole lot of new television in this next season. Next, I'm going to talk about Feeding America, which I mentioned earlier. It's an event that was most of it's pre-recorded, but I thought it was significant, and I think I'm going to watch it, and I think you probably would want to check it out too. So get a refill. I'll get Jack to pick up his phone, and we'll be right back.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
All right, put on portrait mode. Use your paw. All right, I am back. You know, every so often, it's always good to see when others give back, especially those that have had the good fortune, a lot of it's hard work, to create careers in which they can, they've been successful and they've made a lot of money and they're fortunate enough to weather serious economic challenges like a lot of Americans find themselves in right now, and they want to help them out themselves. NBC has partnered with Byron Allen's Entertainment Studios and Funny or Die to air a 2-hour comedy special. It's going to be on Sunday, May 10th, and it's going to be benefiting Feeding America, and that's a hunger relief organization that helps feed people in America that need a little help. Now, the program is going to air on NBC. It's going to be on the Weather Channel, of all channels. That's kind of nice. Comedy.tv. I'm not familiar with Comedy.tv. It's a streaming channel, obviously, on the internet. And the app called Local Now, if you have that, is a quote. There's nothing more important right now than doing everything we can to make sure that everyone affected by this pandemic is able to feed themselves and their families. That was said by Doug Vaughn, NBC's Entertainment Executive Vice President of Special Programs. Doug goes on to say, we're honored to be partnering with Feeding America and the amazing work they're doing to make sure there's food on everyone's table. And I would agree. I'm a big proponent of charity organizations. I think that is what it's all about. and I enjoyed Live Aid, Farm Aid, any kind of aid. This event's not going to be live, though, unfortunately. However, those people that contributed, I think, should get big props. Now, the Feeding America Comedy Festival lineup. Now, guys, again, like I said, it features pre-recorded segments, but these are the people that it includes. And it's a pretty long list. I think you want to hear it. Now, Byron Allen. Now, let me just talk about Byron Allen for a second. Byron Allen, stand-up comic, came up, I believe, in the 70s, maybe the early 80s. He's probably about my age, which makes me feel like I didn't really get a lot done with my years. I'm in my 50s. But Byron Allen now runs an entertainment company, which just won a lawsuit with Comcast, against Comcast. Don't ask me the specifics of it. I don't know. But why that was that important? Because that means he's a player. Byron Allen, get used to hearing that name. If you're not familiar with it, well, you may be familiar with it, but get used to hearing him not just as a performer, probably very seldom as a performer. Get ready to hear about him as somebody who runs an entertainment company who's going to put together some pretty good things. I really, admire what he was able to do with his career. So, again, because this is in alphabetical order, he happened to be the first person named. But the lineup includes Byron Allen, Louis Anderson, Judd Apatow, Jack Black, Wayne Brady, sorry, Adam Carolla, my boy Cedric the Entertainer. We happen to be in the same fraternity, for what that's worth. Funny guy. Margaret Cho, the Dice Man Andrew Dice Clay, who's had a career comeback because it was gone. And I was never a big fan of his, but I always like a good comeback story. So Dice is going to be there. Dion Cole, Billy Crystal, who always seems to show up. Whitney Cummings, Tommy Davidson. He's another guy on the comeback. He was there in living color and he was on the upswing. And I think his career kind of took a left turn, but he's trying to get back in there. So that's good. Bill Engvall. I'm not a big fan of his. Mike Epps. Billy Gardell. Let me try that again. Billy Gardell. Brad Garrett. Whoopi Goldberg. Tiffany Haddish. Kevin Hart, who, bless Kevin Hart. I don't understand why Kevin Hart is as big as he is. And obviously he's he's not a tall guy. I don't mean that, but he is he's a force now in entertainment. And, not my cup of tea, but the brother's successful and I wish him the best. Again, when this is a show about criticism or at least commentary about television and people in it. So I lend my little 2 cents. So I'm not speaking down about Kevin Hart. This is just my quick take. My quick take on Kevin Hart is that if you grew up in the black community and you hung out like in a barbershop, we all know Kevin Hart. So I don't understand what makes Kevin Hart special, but he's got it and good for him. But I would never have fingered Kevin Hart and said that guy is going to make millions approaching who knows how he spends his money. But the brother's earning right now, and I give him all the dap in the world. And listen, if you need someone to do a podcast for you, call me up, Kevin Hart. But anyway, I digress. Seriously. Taraji P. Henson, very talented actress. Kevin James, Jim Jeffries, been to a couple of Jim Jeffries shows, funny guy. Jamie Kennedy, Keegan Michael Key of Key and Peele, George Lopez, John Lovitz, Howie Mandel, Mark Maron, Tim Meadows, Eddie Murphy, who I will say, I hope we see more of Eddie Murphy getting back into stand-up because I think that's his wheelhouse. If that's, he obviously showed he could act like in Dreamgirls and some other things. I mean, just like he said, whether you like the Nutty Professor movies or not, brother did play about 7 parts, and Coming to America, he played about 7 parts. So he can act, but I like his stand-up much better. Caroline Rhea, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, Sarah Silverman, J.B. Smoove, Kenan Thompson, Cheryl Underwood, and Marlon Wayans. All of that's a big money list. Funny people. I think it's going to be worth tuning in. My only disappointment is that it's not live. I think the best comedy is live comedy, and these are pre-recorded sessions. I understand why it's pre-recorded. It's hard to get all those people together in one place for one night. Here's another quote. In partnership with Feeding America, my comedian friends and all of us at Allen Media Group are pleased to announce this global live streaming comedy event. It's going to be on May 10th again. And that was Byron Allen I mentioned of Allen Entertainment Group, and, brothers rolling. Quote, laughter is often the best medicine, and we are extremely motivated to bring attention to issues of food insecurity and to assist in providing meals to families across the country who are financially impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, Byron Allen is a media force, and I am so glad to see his production companies at the forefront of this undertaking. The special is going to air at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on May 10th. Now, it may, I don't know about on the West Coast, it may, since it's taped, it may come on at like 7 or 8 p.m. on the Pacific. I don't know. Check your local listings, as they say. As many of you know, and may be feeling by now, the coronavirus crisis has increased demand for supplies and resources from food banks and other relief groups. Quote, the coronavirus pandemic and the economic downturn it has created is shining a light on the fragile nature of people's household budgets, says Claire Babineau-Fontenot, CEO of Feeding America. And they're a great organization. Quote, millions more of our neighbors are turning to food banks to help, and we cannot thank Byron Allen and Allen Media Group enough for their support to raise funds and awareness of our work. So I'm going to be tuning in. I hope you tune in too. But furthermore, I just hope that if you're in a position to help people out during this time as Americans and as a world community, because I know that we have listeners across the globe, we all need to help each other out right now, regardless of our political ideologies or what we believe happened. We're here right now. And so right now we all need to do what we can to get past this, and then we'll sort it all out later. After we binge watch the latest Netflix release or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, that is it. Next, I'm going to go over what is slated to premiere during this month of May, throughout streaming and on the network. So go get a refill again. I'll be right back. Jack, pick up your phone. I'll be right back. Thanks.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right. Feel better? That's what I thought. That's good stuff. It's hot. All right, I'm back. Now, this is a long list of shows that are going to be starting in the month of May, or series that are going to come back with their new seasons in the month of May, or specials that are going to air this month, or at least that are scheduled to air, because with this coronavirus thing, a lot of stuff gets rescheduled, and the list that I gave you last month, it got changed up. So this will probably change by the time this episode actually drops, which is going to be on Tuesday. So I'm going to start with May 4th, because even though and May 4th is a Monday, so this will be old news regardless if you hear it, but I cut off the first few days because there's no need to know about that now. So anyway, on Monday, May 4th, what's going to come on? Well, on Disney Plus, the show, and I talked about this last week, Disney Gallery The Mandalorian, which is a making of series about how they made The Mandalorian. It's 8 episodes. Again, how you make 8 episodes of that, I don't know, but it's going to be there. Also on Disney Plus, you're going to be able to get the series finale of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which is the acclaimed animated series for Star Wars. On the 4th at 9 p.m., Breakaway Camp with Martha Stewart is going to be on the Discovery Channel. And a series that's going to premiere on AMC, which I'm looking forward to, at 10 p.m. is, these times are all Eastern Standard Times, by the way, because I'm coming to you from beautiful downtown Silver Spring, Maryland. 10 p.m. on the 4th is Creepshow, which is a horror anthology based on the Stephen King movies, and also he did come out with a comic book Creepshow, or graphic novel Creepshow. And so that's what that's going to be. I'm looking forward to that. On the 5th, that Tuesday, Jerry Seinfeld is going to, his Netflix stand-up is going to drop, called 23 Hours to Kill. And at 10 p.m. on Bravo, you have $1 Million Listing, Los Angeles. Wednesday, May 6th, the series Becoming drops on Netflix, so you can binge that if you want to. And at 10 p.m., the new season of Archer starts. That had been postponed on FXX. Thursday, May 7th at 8 p.m., you got The Council of Dads, which is a new NBC series. That's going to be their regular slot. And Celebrity Watch Party comes on at Fox at the same time. I am not hip to Celebrity Watch Party. Sounds like a great show. 9 p.m., Blind Spot. Final season of Blind Spot was, the premiere was supposed to premiere on April the 30th. It's going to premiere on Thursday, May 7th. Friday, May 8th, you have Solar Opposites on Hulu. That's a new series. All the episodes are going to drop. You have another series called The Eddy on Netflix. Dead to Me will be on Netflix, a new season of that. And Jimmy O. Yang, Good Deal, is on Amazon. I am not familiar with Jimmy O. Yang, Good Deal. Sorry. Sunday, May 10th at 7 p.m., Feeding America Comedy Festival is going to be on NBC. That's what we just talked about last segment. I will be watching. At 9 p.m. on HBO, the movie I Know This Much Is True, the Mark Ruffalo movie they've been promoting on HBO for the last 6 months, where he plays twins. And after that on HBO, another show I'm looking forward to is one called The Undoing, which looks very interesting. It's another show, HBO series, miniseries with Nicole Kidman in it. Nicole Kidman is on a roll. She is another actress who I think is not appreciated enough for her acting skills. Monday, May 11th, The Third Day, has been moved to the fall. It was supposed to be premiering on May 11th. That's going to be on the fall. It's an HBO show. Trial by Media, which is a Netflix documentary, will be available on May 11th. And at 10 p.m. on May 11th on the Food Network, Amy Schumer Learns to Cook. That sounds like a great show. Tuesday, May 12th, The Unbreakables' Kimmy Schmidt, Kimmy versus the Reverend, is going to come on Netflix. At 8 p.m., The Happy Days of Gary Marshall. Gary Marshall was the creator of Happy Days, producer of Happy Days. Penny Marshall's brother, the late Penny Marshall and the late Gary Marshall. It's going to be a special documentary on him and the creation of Happy Days. Thursday, May 14th at 8 p.m., Station 19. The finale is going to be on ABC. At 10 p.m., How to Get Away with Murder. The season finale is going to be on ABC. And at 10:30, The Misery Index comes on TBS. Friday, May 15th, The Great, which is a Hulu series with Elle Fanning, where she plays Catherine the Great. All of those episodes drop on May 15th. The Last Narc is another series. It's going to drop on Amazon Prime on May 15th. And at 10 p.m., The Masters of Illusion comes on the CW, and The Blacklist comes on NBC, which is going to be the finale there. On May 17th, you have Hightown that comes on Starz. I'm not familiar with Hightown. I think that's a new series. But on TNT at 9 p.m., Snowpiercer, which is a series based on the movie, which was a very good movie, is going to come on TNT. I look forward to that as a series. I'm sorry that it's going to be on commercial television. No disrespect to TNT. I just think it would be better if it would have been on a cable channel or a channel that didn't have to worry about FCC guidelines. Monday, May 18th, Supernatural, the series finale comes on the CW, and the show Stargirl is going to premiere on the DC Universe streaming service on Monday, May 18th. However, on Tuesday, May 19th, it's going to come on the CW at 8 p.m., and it's going to regularly run on the CW, as well as be available for streaming on the DC Universe. Wednesday, May 20th, The 100 on the CW is going to be the final season. That starts at 8 p.m. At 9 p.m., Ultimate Tag is going to be on Fox. That's another one of those game shows. Thursday, May 21st, Love Island is going to be on CBS. That was something that had to be halted because of social distancing. And The Burden of Truth is going to be on the CW. At 9 p.m. on Thursday, May 21st, Holy Moly comes on ABC. And Labor of Love comes on Fox. And at 10 p.m. that same day, To Tell the Truth game show comes on ABC. On Friday, May 22nd, Homecoming comes on Amazon. On Sunday, May 24th, the finale of Little Big Shots comes on at 7 p.m. Family show, I don't really watch it. This season has Melissa McCarthy as the host. I think it had Tiffany Haddish as the host last season. Whatever works. Monday, May 25th, The Titan Games starts on NBC, and something that was postponed, which I railed about way back. At 10 p.m., Genius Aretha was supposed to come on Nat Geo, or National Geographic Channel, but it has been postponed, with Cynthia Erivo playing the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Now, I have nothing against Cynthia Erivo. Question why she is playing Aretha. She will have to win me over. But that's not going to, I don't know when it's going to come on. That's what was supposed to come on. Wednesday, May 27th, HBO Max launches. It will have original shows on that day called Love Life, On the Record, Craftopia, Legendary, Looney Tunes Cartoons, and The Not Too Late Show with Elmo. Way to go, Elmo. And at 10 p.m. on ABC, you have the final season starting of Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It'll be interesting to see how they will end that. Will they try to tie that into the movies, or will they just kind of let it go its own direction? It'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Friday, May 29th, Central Park. It'll be a first 3 episodes of a new series on Apple TV. And the comedy Space Force drops on Netflix. And finally, on Sunday, May 31st, Celebrity Family Feud comes on at 8 p.m. Wow. And Match Game comes on at 10 p.m. on ABC. And that's it. That's a partial list of the shows that are going to start next month. I just ran out of time. I have way too many. Hope it didn't bore you. Hope you heard something in there that you want to take a peek at. If you have any questions for me, please email me at Podcast Howard, and I hope I get an answer for you. Next, I am going to come back with my review of Day and Night, the Netflix movie starring Ashton Sanders, Jeffrey Wright, and Yahya Abdul-Mateen. Don't go away. It's going to be good.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right. You ready, Jack? Okay. I am back, and last night I watched a movie it dropped on Netflix on May the 1st. I watched it yesterday, which was the 2nd. It's a movie called All Day and a Night, and it was very, very good. If you haven't watched the movie and you want to, and you plan on doing it, go fast forward to the next segment because I'm going to talk about the movie, and there will be a few spoilers. I'm not going to spoil the movie for you even if you haven't seen it, but if you want to go to the movie fresh with no idea what it's about, then I suggest that you wait to listen to this. But if you're on the fence about looking at the movie, listen to this because I think you should watch it. The film's implicit premise is that when raw, young, inner-city criminals become on-screen characters, even when they're treated sympathetically, they're almost always mythologized. And that's a way of tamping down on their humanity. And, I've seen this in films several times. I'm from an East Coast city. This happens to take place on the West Coast. But I have several friends or associates who find themselves in the predicament that these characters are in. And I don't think all too often, it's handled very well in cinema. Joe Robert Cole, the writer-director of All Day and a Night, is the co-screenwriter of Black Panther. He also wrote 2 episodes of The People vs. O.J. Simpson on American Crime Story. And with this movie, I think he becomes a filmmaker to watch. His staging is so no frills that at first you might think it's too neutral. I mean, there's one hypnotic 3-minute long shot that it's a very good shot. It took me out of the movie a little bit, sort of like a throwback almost to Boys in the Hood. I didn't really care for it as much as the rest of the movie, but it is very good filmmaking. It's excellent filmmaking. Yet there's a dramatic potency to this type of scruffy, lived-in authenticity that you don't see very often. Cole lays bare the operations of a world that's been milked all too often for sensationalized gangster shenanigans, and there's none of that in this movie. There's a scene in All Day and a Night that, it cuts kind of hard. Jacor Lincoln, who is the main character, he's played by Ashton Saunders of Moonlight. He was also Bigger Thomas in Native Son on HBO. Fantastic young actor. And he plays a freelance thug and an aspiring rapper. This movie takes place in Oakland, California. And in this scene, he's seated in the living room of a gang leader named Big Stunna. Now, Big Stunna is played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen. Those of you who saw Watchmen on HBO would recognize him as Dr. Manhattan. And he is a completely different character here. Completely. All of these actors in this movie are fantastic. Jacor is trying to play up to the local hood-turned-celebrity rapper, this guy named Thuggish Trex. He's played by an actor named James Earl that I've never seen before. Well, not James Earl Jones, but James Earl. He does a good job too. He's wearing a long gold chain and a legend tracksuit, and he carries himself like the caricature he is. If there's any caricature in this movie, it is this guy, Thuggage Trex. He holds the power of someone who could hook a brother up if he wants to get into the rap game. And so when he asks Jakor to play his music for him, on his iPhone, it's a rare opportunity. He doesn't ask him with that language, but he asks him, and so he's very excited to do so. So they cue up one of Jakor's homemade recordings, and it starts to play. And this character is hardly a specialist in displaying emotion, but in this scene, he closes his eyes, he's bobbing his head up and down. He's sinking into the groove of his rap. He's hoping this guy's going to accept it. He's not a bad rapper, but he's not a great one either. He sounds like 100 other rappers you hear out there on the streets. And just as the song's about to kick in, Trex looks up from the blunt he's rolling and he says, "Man, you got another track?" And it's like he stuck a blade in the Jakor's dream. It was a scene that we have seen played out in other movies, but this time it's just done very well. Jakor wants to use his rap, as many youth do, to box his way out of his current situation. Yet All Day and a Night couldn't be further in tone away from a movie like Hustle and Flow, which was a decent movie, but Hustle and Flow is a caricature movie too, if you ask me. There's no vestige of romanticism here. There's no movie-ish salvation. All Day and Night is made with empathy and skill, but it's as clear-eyed and remorseless as a news report. All Day and a Night opens with Jakor executing a drug dealer and then being sent to prison. We see how he negotiates existence behind bars, but the film then jumps back into his life and it shows us the journey of haphazard tragedy and violence that got him there. And Ashton Saunders brings us very close to this character. Saunders plays Jakor as a battle-scarred and alert young man with a haunted scowl that doesn't always cover up, his emotions. You can see it underneath this persona he tries to exude. Saunders is the kind of poetic actor that finds a lyricism in Jakor's stunted nihilism. I know people like Jakor, as I said before, and I've never seen an actor play a person like that with such fearless authenticity. Now, my man Jeffrey Wright plays Jakor's father, J.D., who we see in flashbacks as a freebase head and a do-rag who treats his wife and son like hostile criminals. Those of you who know Jeffrey Wright from Westworld, trust me, J.D. is galaxies away from Brent Arnold. J.D.'s viciousness is scary. Jeffrey Wright, very similar to the books of Iceberg Slim, shows that the character's street rage is actually a manipulative, threatening performance that he dials up and down as he pleases. He's setting up Jakor to perpetuate the legacy of violence, yet there are glimpses of love that he has for his son. The two men meet up again in prison later on, at which point Wright masterfully portrays J.D. as a declawed lion. All Day and a Night may sound like a hard movie to sell, since it never falsifies gangsta thrills. Yet there's an excitement to seeing this landscape of yearning hunger and cyclic rage treated with neo-realist humanity. If Joe Robert Cole, the director, holds on to that gift of being able to show us that cold reality in a way that translates, he has a chance to be the kind of filmmaker who can connect us all. Now, this is not a movie for everyone. However, if you're a person who can handle violence and strong language, and there is violence in this movie, but you would usually not choose to watch a crime and punishment flick set in inner city Oakland, and I can understand. But if you have Netflix, give it a peek. I think this is ultimately going to be a very important movie. Now, I was surprised that it was not featured on the homepage of my Netflix account when I signed on. This struck me as odd, since Netflix seems to want to push series like Narcos on me and documentaries about serial killers all the time. I'm not sure why I had to search to find this movie. I find it a little bit bothersome. I hope it's just a glitch in the algorithm. Somehow I doubt it. I don't know why Netflix would want to. Well, I'm not saying they're hiding this movie, obviously, but I don't see why Netflix would not have put this higher on the page. I would like to say this about the movie for those of you who look at it and are the types of people who would not watch a movie like this and didn't watch Watchmen or never saw Moonlight. Or, Jeffrey Wright has been in a lot of productions, so you've probably seen Jeffrey Wright before. But trust me when I tell you, these actors, these young black men act nothing like the people they are portraying. And something that happens sometimes to young black actors, especially male actors, is that there's an assumption that when they play urban toughs, when they play criminals, they play dope dealers, they don't have to reach too far to portray those characters, that they're portraying themselves. This is something that we have to get over in society, and I'm not here to preach to you, but I want you to appreciate the acting that you're watching if you do happen to watch this movie, because these gentlemen are nothing like these characters that they're playing. All Day and a Night is worth the watch. It's more than worth the watch. And I'm giving All Day and a Night on my 5-tier food ranking system, 5 deep dish chicken pot pies with killer crust. And that's high praise. So if you have Netflix, give it a look. I think you're really going to like it. Next, we'll be less serious. We will get back to breaking news, and then I'll finish up with my last recap of Westworld Season 3, the finale. Thanks for listening. Go get a refill, and we'll be back right after this.
Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the backdoors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
Okay, I am back. Come on, you're good. We are back to the light portion of the show. I thought All Day and a Night was a movie worth getting serious about, but now we're going to go back into some breaking news. ITV has revealed that this summer's edition of Love Island will move to 2021 due to coronavirus fears. That makes sense to me. Kevin Ligo, director of television at ITV, said, "We have tried every which way to make Love Island this summer, but logistically, it's just not possible to produce it in a way that safeguards the well-being of everyone involved.
I'd do anything
and
for
that,
him.
For us, is the priority." Now, I have to admit, I've never watched Love Island.
I'd
but
submit to him.
It does sound like there's a lot of physical contact going on Love Island. Quote, "In normal circumstances, we would be preparing very soon to travel out to the location in Mallorca and get the villa ready, but clearly that's out of the question." Now, anytime there's a villa in Mallorca,
please, sir,
it sounds like an orgy to me.
Oh, sir.
We are very sorry for fans of the show, but making it safely is our prime concern, and Love Island will be back stronger than ever in 2021. In the meantime, Love Island fans can still enjoy all 6 series of Love Island on BritBox. So if you want to go back and revisit some of the hottest moments on Love Island, you can subscribe to BritBox. It'll all be there. That's great news. Here is some more breaking news. Well, I know this is not a political podcast, and I'm not going to start making it one now. But I saw this article in the Hollywood Reporter, and it resonated with me. Because not only have I worked as a journalist and have a master's in journalism and consider myself a journalist, but I happen to have quite a few friends in the profession, especially since I live here inside the Beltway in the DMV, right outside of Washington, D.C. So this is the synopsis of this article. The first year of the Trump presidency was a year of calibration for the nation's top journalist who learned to keep up with a politician who revels in exhausting the press corps, launching news cycles with early morning and late night and weekend tweets. The next 2 years, 2018 and 2019, were even more exhausting as journalists scrambled to cover government shutdowns, congressional hearings, a Supreme Court nomination, the president's flirtation with North Korea, the Mueller report, and impeachment. At this point, journalists, print, online, and television, all of them, are used to the Trump pace. Weekends are gone. Work-life balance is not a thing. And that was true even before this COVID-19 hit, which is the biggest story in the last 20 years, if not longer. But that doesn't mean that national journalists want to do it for 4 more years. Now, let me start off by saying this. One of the first rules of journalism, even though we live in a very polarized society, and because I can go into a long reason why this happened, we're not that type of podcast. But even though some stations like Fox News and say MSNBC are perceived to be, and rightly so, to lean a particular direction, true journalists are supposed to be just unbiased. We are supposed to just tell, as my grandmother used to say, just tell the news and not necessarily sit on one side of the aisle or not. So with that said, let me continue with this article. A senior CNN producer tells The Hollywood Reporter that the network's journalists are not rooting against the president in November, but guess they would welcome a return to a more normal presidency and accompanying news cycle. Quote, as journalists, I don't think anyone cares about what party the president of the United States is, the producer says. What they care about is being able to live their lives normally again. I think there's a mental exhaustion around this presidency, and I don't know anyone who is enjoying it. I don't know anybody who wants to do another 4 years of this news cycle. The producer continues, it's not a matter of what his political beliefs or his ideological beliefs are. The exhaustion comes from his behaviors. That's it. His behavior is exhausting. I don't think I've run into anybody who says they literally hate Donald Trump the man. They're just exhausted by his behavior. And I think that's fair. Nobody I know is openly rooting for him to lose. Using similar language, a broadcast news executive says that a second Trump term would be exhausting for journalists. Maggie Haberman, the chief White House correspondent for the New York Times and the journalist who has most embodied the Trump presidency, expressed doubt about her ability to cover another Trump term logistically. In a previous unpublished interview with The Hollywood Reporter in late February, before the coronavirus was officially declared a pandemic. Asked whether she would embrace covering 4 more years of The Trump Show, Haberman said, I don't want to embrace anyone's 4 more years, frankly. There are very few people who have continuously covered administrations. My colleague Peter Baker is one of them, and he's one of the best in the business. Haberman continued, but I didn't set out to be a permanent White House reporter, and I don't think that I actually logistically can do this for another 4 years, no matter who the president is. Do I think burnout is a real factor? It's a real factor for any White House. I do think that because of the accelerated speed of all of this, I think that there are a lot of people who might be exhausted by the first 4 years. I'm ready for anything, says ABC News chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl, who wrote a book about covering the president when asked about the next 4 years. While the makeup of the second-term White House press corps is hard to predict, the journalists who spoke to The Hollywood Reporter say the media would be just as aggressive and energetic in covering his next 4 years as they've been in his first. Quote, I think packing it in doesn't work for anybody no matter what your beliefs are, the broadcast news network executive says. It's what we're here to do. The CNN producer that we spoke about earlier in the article expresses a similar sentiment. He says if there are another 4 years, if you're a journalist and you want to be in this profession, you're going to just have to deal with it. I think that if he gets reelected, nobody's going to give up. You're just going to have to bear down and continue to do the job. If Joe Biden wins, the focus will shift to holding Joe Biden accountable. Whatever happens in November, the job is not going to change. This idea that somehow we're going to take some sort of vacation and go party if Biden is elected isn't true. People think what they want, but how we do our jobs will not change. End quote. Well, the reason I thought this article was interesting, number one, like I said, I'm a journalist. Also, as somebody who is in this town, knows people who cover the White House and have been around with people who've covered previous White Houses, I will say that, just like they say in the article, business is not as usual up on Capitol Hill or at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. However, I think there are a lot of things that are converging at the same time. One, we're dealing with a person, an individual, who is a different type of cat and a different type of animal. As somebody who was an outsider, who's not indoctrinated with the traditions and the mores of how the White House press corps worked, things got disrupted. And that's exactly what happened. However, we've never had a president that tweeted this much, ever. I mean, Twitter really wasn't around until the Obama administration, and that particular president didn't use it the way this one does. Furthermore, we have just a big world of social media. The digital landscape has become calcified, is more the norm. It's always changing. I don't mean calcified and that it's frozen. I mean, it's just entrenched. That's the way we communicate now. So, while everything is moving faster as far as how information is processed and information is communicated, news is communicated, we also have an administration that takes advantage of that frenetic pace. So I thought it was interesting that the way that we consume media as a public may grind up a few journalists. And, you know, there is going to be a new type of journalism that's on the rise. And as a traditional journalist, I don't necessarily cheer it on, but that's just the way it is. And so it'll be interesting to see that if, in fact, if we do go into a different administration, will things change? I don't anticipate that whoever's president after this president, whether it's in 1 year or 4 years from now, will use Twitter in the same aggressive manner. It still will be interesting to see how news changes, especially on television and especially on devices that we use like televisions now, like our phones, tablets, and watches. And that's it for breaking news for now. Next is our final recap of Westworld Season 3. The finale was last night. I have some mixed feelings about it. If you watched it, I would love to hear about what you think too. Go get some refreshments and strap in. We will be right back with the season finale of the third season of Westworld on HBO. Don't go away.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right. This is it. Finally, sit down, Jack. Get comfortable. This is it. The finale of Westworld Season 3 was last night on HBO. I am not going to do a blow-by-blow recap as I have done way too many times on this show, I've been told by you guys on Twitter. I am going to go over 5 different questions that I have or that were set up by last night about what we're going to, what's going to happen in the next season. It's been greenlit for a 4th season. Thank goodness. If you haven't seen it, there are going to be some spoilers here. Pause this, go and watch the finale and then come back. And if you have seen it, I'd love to hear what you thought about it. Please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com. First off, let me just say that I feel uneasy about this last episode. I've only watched it once, so I'll have to go back. I have a feeling that on the second or maybe even third watch, I will like it more. Right now, I was sort of, there's an after credit scene. To me, that was the best part of the whole thing. I sort of feel like this season, I thought the first episode of the season was the best episode. And it kind of like just was after that. It did have some highs. I have been on this show. I don't want to sound like I'm revisionist. I mean, I have raved about some of the episodes this season, but more is on the visual thing than the narrative. I just think that we're back where we started pretty much at the end of season 2. And I can talk about that later on. But let me talk about these questions that I came up with. First is that really the last we've seen of Dolores, Evan Rachel Wood? As you know, She got her pearl erased by Serac, and that was sad to see. Dolores is my favorite character on the show. I will say that. It looks like Dolores really did see the splendor in the world after all. Everyone thought that her plan was to wipe out humanity, when all along she was trying to give it a shot at free will, a chance to make something beautiful of the world. Now, last night on the finale, we saw Dolores sacrifice herself to stop Serac and to give Caleb the power to choose the future of the human race. And Caleb and Maeve left poor Dolores lifeless with a empty pearl at the foot of Rehoboam. I will never be able to say that name. And all the characters seem to think that Dolores Abernathy was no more. I mean, there wasn't any person that let the audience know that they thought Dolores had a chance of being somewhere else. But in this series, is it ever truly the case that someone's gone? I mean, even with the data that they collected in the park, you could bring a human back as a host if the human's dead. So I'm hoping that that's not the last we have seen of Evan Rachel Wood. If I'm not mistaken, though, the Sato Masashi Pearl still exists, which is Dolores, because we saw Clementine walk away with his head in episode 7. So I'm pretty sure that can be used. And also, as I mentioned last episode, we never went to Berlin. And there was a diversion in Berlin early in the series. All the other divergences had Dolores copies in them. So I have to believe that there is an Evan Rachel Wood Dolores in Berlin. I certainly hope so. I also want to know, how are Caleb and Maeve going to save the world? You know, the final shot of season 3 found Caleb and Maeve looking out over Los Angeles, ruined by chaos. You know, look like the end of Fight Club almost. And the world seemingly was hurling toward an end. You know, it was just mass confusion in the streets. So how exactly are they going to save it? I mean, Caleb and the rest of humanity have been given free will, but as Dolores pointed out, free will does exist, but it's just effing hard. So Caleb and Maeve seem to have an impossible task on their hands to rescue the mess that humans have created for themselves. Unless, I don't even know how. We'll have to see. Because there's no way for them to control these people anymore. So I don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to save the world. The other question is, what is Hale's plan? And that's what I'm going to call the host, Charlotte Hale, even though it is technically kind of partially Dolores. The answer seems to be that she wants to build an army of hosts to take over the world. Again, like I said, we're seeing to be back at the beginning of, or at the end of season 2, where Dolores wanted to take over the world with a bunch of hosts. So it just seems like now the Shaloris one is doing the same thing. I don't know. In the first post-credit scene, though, you have William, where he found Hale in the basement of the Delos facility. And before he could kill her, she managed to pull out a host man in black to slit William's throat and ended his game. So after William's death, it was revealed that the facility was full of host-making machines. So I guess Hale is getting ready to create this big host army. That's kind of a boring storyline, if you ask me. Bernard discovered that he had the key to the Delos data. He had the encryption key in his head, so he accessed the great beyond, and he looked out and saw something wondrous. And the final post-credit scene, we saw that he came back into his body, and we don't know what he saw. Bernard does know that the apocalypse is inescapable at this point. At least that's what he's been told. That's what the audience has been told through Bernard. So what solution, what alternative world could he possibly have seen? You know, we'll have to wait for season 4 to find out. Maybe he has discovered a way for us to avoid total annihilation. We shall see. And last but not least, how many more seasons can Westworld sustain these complex plots and themes? Now, season 3 saw Westworld leave the park behind for a real world filled with just as much chaos and pain as before. The season continued to explore the theme of free will, not only for hosts, but also for humans, while also tossing massive corporate data collection and the dangers of technology into the mix. Although it was clearly more linear, which is what Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan said they were going to do, it still had plenty of wild ideas and weighty dialogue, which the series has always been known for. But the question is, here's the big question. How long can Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy sustain that level of complexity? And perhaps more to the point, how long will the audience be willing to stick around for it? This audience member loves it. I liked season 2 better than season 3. Season 3 was supposed to be an improvement over season 2 by making it more simple to understand, less complex, less of a puzzle. And it was easier to understand. I didn't like it as much, but maybe it works for a larger audience, and that's what they're trying to reach. I'll watch it regardless. So they don't have to work toward getting me to stick around. I'm still in. What about you? Please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com. I didn't get any emails last week. Not even from Tyrion. Tyrion Lannister my boy didn't even email me. I'm disappointed, Tyrion. I'm hoping you're listening. It was very disappointing. I hope I get one next week because I read all my emails on air. Speaking of next week, this brings us to the end of Westworld. So next show, Friday, I'm going to announce what series I'm going to focus on next. I think I know, but I'll let you know for sure. If there's a series that you want me to recap at the end of every episode, please let me know. Again, email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com. And that brings us to the end of another episode of the GSMC Television Podcast. We are part of the mighty GSMC Podcast Network. Listen, I'd like to thank you very much for listening. It's always a pleasure being with you for this 1 hour, twice a week. I hope you come back. If you would, please follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Go right now. Go and subscribe to the podcast and please rate us. I'm asking you for 5 stars. You rate us how you like, and that means 5 stars. It really helps the podcast grow, and I really appreciate it. Our next episode will drop next Friday in the afternoon, Eastern Time. In the meanwhile, I want you to wash your hands, be kind to everybody. Don't go out if you don't have to. If you do have to go out, and if you do have to work, please be careful. Watch yourself. And I'll see you soon. My name is Howard Fletcher. It's been my pleasure to do this every week. Jack's my engineer. Yeah, Jack, I mentioned you. Jack's my engineer. He's the guy who makes all the smart moves. I'm just the guy who blathers on the microphone. So take care, and I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.